Okay, guys, welcome back. This is going to be take two on the first episode of Stoic by Nature. We are going to be covering today why men feel lost in modern society. If you are listening, drop a comment, let me know if the audio sounds good. Last time I know we had a problem with audio. I believe it is to be rectified. I have tested it and it does work. Let me know how it is on your end. If there are any issues, please raise them in the chat and I can address it accordingly. I just want to start off by apologising. The first time I recorded this, as I said, there were audio issues. Now, before we carry on, I just want to let you guys know that this is a new channel, a new venture for me in terms of podcasting. If you do wish to support me or the channel or what I speak for in any way, please like, comment, share, subscribe to all the channels that you can. YouTube, Kick, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And also another way to support is by purchasing some merch. I do have a clothing line. I told you guys briefly about this before, and it is for the moment on Shopify. Once I secure a solid demand for it, I will then look at suppliers and start buying in bulk stock for myself. At the moment the quality is good, and as I said, if you guys want any merch, please head over to the Shopify store. I will drop a banner right here. You'll see it in a moment. Also, another way to show some love and support the channel is by commenting and having your discussions with me as we're going through the stream. You can comment on the live stream itself on Facebook or whatever you see. But also, if you want your questions to be read aloud and then us to have some open discourse, use the link that I'm about to provide now. So there is a PayPal link right here. Also, with the link to my Shopify store, those are some of the ways that you can show some support. And also let me know what you think about the designs in terms of how they are. This is like the first version of them, should I say. So there's that. Anyway, now let's get this working. So, why men feel lost in modern society? There's a few reasons. There's a few reasons, but mainly it comes down to three key attributes. The first attribute is not having a role or a purpose. As a man, this is very important, and this is very indicative on the end of the road that you travel. So what I'm saying is, if you're not a protector or a provider, or you don't have a clear script for your behaviour and your goals in life, first of all, you're not going to get anywhere. And also you're not going to be living true to values to the point where people can look to you for a source of reliability. So having a role is very important. Having a purpose is very important. Knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're setting out to achieve. That's number one. Number two is adversity. I think the way that we live our lives now, socioeconomically, and even mentally, right? Even all the things that you see in life, they're set out to dumb down the male experience. And what I mean by that is that we have this desire to conquer and to capture and to acquire, but then also we have the same ability to want to turn around and share that with our loved ones and bring them to the forefront in terms of the things that we have acquired and chased in order to come to fruition. So if there is no adversity in life, if there is no adversity in your life, you're not going to be able to go through hardships, number one. You're also not going to be able to come out the other side of those hardships understanding that you have to see things through to the end. Also, understand this: the male experience in comparison to the female experience is just as valuable, but very much harder, in the sense that a lot of females can, whether you're young or older, they can walk around life without really any social justification, in terms of like they don't have to prove themselves in any way, they just have to exist, especially in terms of biologically how mate selection and attraction is configured. Females don't chase males, males chase females, so they can just be pretty and sit back. So the mindset for females is very different in comparison to the mindset for males, whereas we have the mindset of, well, we have to go out there and fucking get it. Now, if there is no hurdles and obstacles and pits to fall into as you're chasing those goals and getting that bag, then you're not gonna develop the mentality of dexterity, and you're not going to be able to see things through to the very end. So there's that. Also, when you are overcoming adversities set out by life, it gives you a sense of self-worth, a sense of purpose that cannot be faked. And it's not toxic, it's just confidence. So it's important to build that resilience and overcome those hardships. So that's number 2, roles and adversity. Number 3, and finally, is having tangible impacts. So if you add the 2 that I just spoke about together and accompany it with having something tangible, it means to say that you are a man of standards and you have a goal, but also you are chasing that in order to achieve that goal. So that's taking it and bringing it full circle. Having tangible impacts on your immediate community, your family, your friends, your neighbours, etc. But also for the wider community, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you are an influencer of some sort. Maybe you're a public figure, maybe you're not. Maybe you're someone who a lot of people respect in your community, in your town, in your area, etc. You need to be able to have some sort of give back, have some sort of visual representation of what you stand for. So for example, in the old days, I say in the old days because not many people have these values now, in terms of like hunting, resource gathering, in terms of farming, creating food for yourself, crops for the wider community. These kind of things are heavily disregarded in today's culture. And they have a direct correlation in terms of what you're willing to stand for when it comes to survival, when it comes to getting on in life. And also it has a mentality aspect in terms of what you're willing to provide for your offspring. So this is also crucial in mate selection. If you look at conversely how females look at males, it's, well, what can he provide? What resources can he give to me in order for me to be secure, and my offspring to be healthy and be secure as well? So you, as a male, if you cannot provide that, or you're not willing to provide that, just understand that more than likely you're not going to get any females, bruh. So there's that. Now, that's one aspect when you have meaning. The other aspect is comfort. Comfort for males is bad. It's very negative. If you sit in that comfort, you're not going to achieve shit. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am a very average male in terms of my appearance and things of that nature. So I'm not special, but I get 3, 4, 5 DMs a month in regards to males looking at me for guidance and leadership and a purpose to fulfill in their lives. For example, this one young gentleman, he lives in the UK, and he messaged me the other day saying, look, I just need someone to talk to. Alright, cool, like, I'll be there in terms of open ears, but I'm not someone you can just babble to, and I'm not going to give any constructive criticism or advice or a path for you to follow. So we set out in that direction. I listened to him very closely, He doesn't have immediate family around him or friends. He doesn't have a purpose. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have confidence in himself. He doesn't necessarily know how to speak to people. And he's one of these young gentlemen that apologizes for random things for no reason. It just lets me know that he's a very anxious individual, and he's someone who's not confident. This tells me that he has, one, no tangible impacts on himself and his life, and number two, he's not been through any adversity to develop confidence in himself. Number three, he has no role in life. There is no one looking up to him, and he also does not look up to anyone significant in his life in order to get up off the sofa or out of the basement or whatever you want to fill the gap and get after it. And there's many examples like that just in my DMs, and I'm just an average Joe. So imagine someone who is important, someone who is an entrepreneur, someone who is an influencer. Could only imagine how many guys are reaching out to them. It's wild. And comfort really kills in terms of the male experience. There's a void in terms of how comfortable your life is. And what that means is that comfort creates that void for necessity. Our basic survival needs and our safety is met in life. So because of that, there's no real get up and go to achieve anything. There's no real tangible repercussions for not achieving anything, especially until you get older and you have priorities. So a lot of males, young guys, end up getting 21, 22 with no girlfriend, no job, no actual achievements, and they're like, I am no one and I have nothing. That's for the most part the male experience. So as I spoke to you about adversity comes from initiations. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, as a young male, when you turn into an adult, you would have been initiated in some way. You would have been conditioned mentally and physically, understanding how to treat yourself, other people around you, and especially females, so that when you become 18, 19, 20, an adult, you are able to walk through life in the right way and confidently. There is no initiation like that for males nowadays. You can literally do nothing, be nothing, have no goals, and still get to your 20s and 30s with no real repercussions, which is a very, 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 very big problem. All of this accumulates into a person who is lost inside, a person who has no confidence, a person who walks through life looking at life but not seeing it for what it really is and the things that it can really bring you. This brings me on to the paradox of choice. Because of the fact that there are more options, men especially are more likely not to take any option. Well, what do I mean by that? Let me give you an analogy. If there is two shops, two stores, one of them you have 5 choices of chocolate, let's say, you're more than likely going to pick a choice. Whereas conversely, if there was a store with 20 brands of chocolate, you're going to be there for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes unable to make a choice, because there are loads of flavours and options and colours that excite you and things that you can choose from. So, and this rule generally accentuates throughout your whole life. If you have more choice in something, more than likely, psychologically, you're not going to be able to make up your mind and come to a conclusion of what decision to make. The process and the conclusion of all of these things of what I'm saying results in guys being comfort trapped. They're stuck in a situation mentally and physically where they understand something is wrong, even if they can identify it. Because their physical needs are met, they have food in their fridge and they have clothes, they're not tempted to get up and go and fulfill anything in life. Their basic needs are met, which is emasculating to the point where males are not being masculine anymore. I don't mean toxically how you see it all over the internet being portrayed, but stoicism is an attribute, and it's a foundation for many guys to build upon themselves, who they are and the things that they stand for. When you are comforted like this, you tend to not have these values. You tend to not live by these virtues. So because of the lack of adversity and because of all of these other things mentioned, there's really no incentive for men to be men anymore. Which, for the older generation, might not necessarily seem a problem. But what you guys have to understand is that the young guys are the future of the planet. They are the future governmental leaders, politicians, lawyers, etc., etc. So these young boys, especially, are the ones that we should be looking out for. So there's that. Now let's talk about emotional fragility. As I stated earlier, most guys are emasculated due to social norms and due to the lack of pressure and adversity set upon them by nature nowadays. Because of that, men are not able to control themselves, and they're not able to look at life the way that people do. People are meant to, should I say. And they become very mentally weak, and they're not able to withstand any adversity, even if it was to come in their way. This leads to a lot of emotional instability, aggression, avoidance of help, and hypersensitivity towards criticism, which often leads you down a path of heavy anxiety, depression, and sometimes suicide. And this is accentuated throughout the male experience. For the most part, no one gives a shit about guys' mental health. And I'm not going to be the one to sit here and cry and say that you should care. I'm not saying that. I'm just pointing out the facts as they stand today. No one really cares. So because no one really cares, there is no incentive for males to better themselves, because it doesn't make a difference anyway, right? Conversely, when you over-civilize the wrong things in society, and force them through like governmental policies, it's another way of emasculating people in general, but males for the most part. Females can get away in life without necessarily being succumbed to these things. They succumb to other things, and I'll talk about that in an episode in the future. But for now, we're just sticking to the male experience. When you have societal pressures like that, governmental policies like that, it's crazy. We're looking at replacing the human workforce with AI. Now, what I will say, for the most part, it is exaggerated. Most of your jobs are not going to get taken, however, a lot of them are. But most of them, how it is portrayed in social media and the news, it's not going to be affected. We're looking at LGBTQ and the social rift that it's causing between straight heterosexuals and, the other side. Then we're looking at racial instability, blacks versus whites, those kind of things. All of these are designed to make you look over this way when the actual problem is over here. It's very distracting, and the government officials are doing these kind of things on purpose, but they are underlying it with the fact that it's natural. And it's not natural, because if it was, you wouldn't have a government policy to enforce these kind of things, right? In terms of like pronouns and shit, like, man, I don't go around caring what people do, but when you start enforcing that shit on children, that's when the problem persists, and it really starts to grow. To the point where you're not letting kids make choices for themselves, you're inputting bad thoughts in their heads, so they're developing a bias, they're developing a duality where they are pure on one side, but they are negatively and toxically influenced on the other side without being able to grow and make that choice for themselves. So I think that's one of the biggest problems. And we can go into detail about how, social norms and governmental influences control us. But as I said, that's for, another another topic, another episode. Now, what's the cure for this? What's the be all and end all for most guys? I think learning what your emotions are and how to control them, and using that as a foundation, using that as your bridge to then go to the next level. In terms of life, in terms of fitness, in terms of mental health, in terms of physical health, spirituality, all of that stuff. In terms of how you see yourself when you look in the mirror, in terms of when you walk down the street, how do other people see you and treat you and talk about you behind your back? That's the most important thing. And I think a lot of guys are lacking this stoicism that I'm talking about. A lot of guys are lacking actual emotional stability, actual emotional control. A lot of people want to run around here talking about how guys are, emotional and insecure and stuff like that. Yeah, for the most part they are. But also you are misrepresenting and mislabeling what it actually is. It isn't toxic masculinity. That kind of doesn't exist, or it's known as something else. For the most part, stoicism, what that means is being able to identify with truth, understanding how that makes you feel, and controlling that inadequately so that you can then make a decision and a routine and have discipline that you stick to every single day. That's what stoicism, for the most part, is. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So, one of the things that you can do to become more emotionally regulated is focusing on who you are as a person, your internal character. So who the fuck are you every day with or without people around you? This is the central tenet in terms of finding yourself. You find yourself in your choices, your judgments, and also your actions. We call these things what you can control. So what you can control that to the best of your ability. Live true to it, and also do what is right. Understand, guys, what you do sometimes is what you do all the time. Also, we're going to look at the dichotomy of control, which is touching deeper on the things that you control. Directing your energy and control towards internal responses. So you may not be able to control a conversation, how someone reacts to you, but you cannot control how someone reacts to you, but you can control how you as a person react to said environment, said conversation, said situation. So for example, if, let's analogize it like this. If someone bumped into you down the street, for the most part, the male experience ends up at the top of the totem pole, it being violent. All guys know that there is a stipulation in the contract where, like, if you talk shit for too long or if you fuck around, you are going to find out. Forgive the paraphrasing, but you understand the point, right? Females don't necessarily go through this because their profile in terms of aggression and the way that they lead to aggression isn't through physical violence. For males it is. So because of that, you have to be able to control how you react to situations. Also, this reduces anxiety, depression, because you're able to control a situation. For the most part, anxiety is being scared of how the future turns out. Depression is being scared of how the past affected you. All of that is to do with how you controlled the situation as well. So grasping that with two hands and changing not necessarily the toxic things that you may or may not used to do, but just how you see things, how recognizing patterns work, so that you're able to position yourself in a place that's much healthier and much better for you and the people around you. Reflection and improvement is also very, very important. We can all sit back and say should have, could have, would have. These are all alt claims that don't necessarily impact what is in life. So there is that. But also, there is an element to sitting down, maybe doing some sort of meditating, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, but I understand that it does help. It does calm the mind, it does ease the body. You can reflect on past choices. You can reflect on future events that are about to happen. But you also need to ensure that your actions align with your values. You also need to ensure that you have control, and you have to think about things before you do them. That is the most important part. Being accountable for your actions, your thoughts, and your the virtues that you instill on yourself and the people around you. And you also have to accept any impermanences that happen. So you have to understand that life is not forgiving, and things can change in an instant. And this is an inherent part of nature. Nature is imbalanced, and it is perfect because it is imbalanced. If you can position yourself and control your emotions in the degree of, well, it is what it is, you're going to be less likely to blame other people for things that happen around you. You're also going to develop this strong self-worth and confidence, and self-esteem. And it's not ego, it's just confident. It's being confident in who you are, the things that you stand for, and what you can control. So there's that. And I think, without going off topic too much, we all know someone who falls into the categories that we just discussed. For sure. We all know somebody like that. We all know a young man who is being lost down the road of life because he wants to stay on the roads and do drugs and stay out late, chase females, etc. We all know the older person who's addicted to alcohol and still stuck in their ways in terms of treating females toxically and blaming them for it. But these all seem very personal to me, but it's not. This is just generally how guys are. When you don't work on yourself, you externalize and project bad habits and behaviors in your life towards other people. These normally manifest in anger issues. They normally manifest in being sensitive to criticism. And like I said, we all know somebody like that. So check on your people. Check on your people, because for the most part, people ain't going to talk unless you probe them. I'm not necessarily saying that is right or wrong, but it is what it is. And understanding these things will help you and the people around you. So I hope you guys was able to hear me a lot better. I hope that this episode, whether you're watching now or you're looking back on it from the future, it will help you in terms of the base foundation in what you need to do. One thing that I will say to guys is, in order for you to improve the things that we worked on, you need to have a role. You need to have a purpose. And you need to be able to hold yourself accountable to the highest degree. You have to be your worst critic. And the reason for that is, if other people are your worst critic, you will take that as bullying, especially if you're not someone who can control how they feel, or if you don't have self-confidence. Another thing that I would say is, one of my teammates famously says this: shut up and train. Shout out Hayden. But it's right. Don't be going on social media and trying to glorify your life in order to gain some sort of self-worth and confidence, because that people can see through that shit. Go in the gym every single day, even when you don't feel like it. And this is important. The days that you don't feel like doing something are the days that you will get the most out of said event. Whether it is going to the gym, whether it is going for a run, whether it is doing 50 press-ups or 100 press-ups in your house. Do that. Do it every day, and don't expect people to care that you're doing that. This is just part of your job as a male. This is part of your job. You should be doing this for yourself. That's first and foremost. Number two is make sure you have good line of work and you have steady income. You don't have to be rich. You ain't got to be, some crazy ass entrepreneur. But you do have to have meaning. You do have to have an impact in terms of when you make an action, what is the reaction in your community, in your close family, friends around you? How do they treat you? How do they talk about you behind your back? All of these carry weight, and they have a big piece in the puzzle when it comes to males and their confidence and how they see the world and how they treat other people. So I think from one perspective, without being truly biased, because I am a male, I'm not female, you need both aspects. You need males to be playing their part, but you also need females to be playing their part in order for both to come together and work. And that's just life. So that's that. But guys, I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And as I said before, if you are fortunate enough to be in a position where you can support the channel, please do so. Like, drop a comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow my Instagram and TikTok. There will be updates in terms of content on all of those platforms. But also, next time, look at the PayPal links, because when we look at more interesting topics and start branching through the episodes that I have planned for you guys, we can look at people actually getting their comments read out, and we can have discourse, so other people can also get other people's perspective. I think that's important. And also I want to see the people who are agreeing with me and disagreeing with me. Now understand this, I'm talking from a position of biology for the most part, so it's factual, but I like to hear other people's opinions. I like to hear other people's experiences, and I think other people will do too. So there's that. And also, let me know how you feel about the merch, please. If you can, cop some clothing. They're simple, they're minimalistic. Have a look on the website, and that is one way that you can support this channel. But until next time, guys, peace.